So welcome back to Transform Gov, which is this is part two of a two-part interview with Huda As'ad, who's from Accenture, and she is the infrastructure queen. That's what I'm calling her anyway. And she told us in part one some fascinating stories about the different projects she's worked on and what she's learned from those, but in particular, the London 2012 Olympics, which she was very much involved in, which you can imagine was a big challenging infrastructure build, but also had a deadline. So please don't miss part one, but we're really looking forward to hear more from Huda. And part two, Huda, welcome back to part two.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we're going to kind of dig into, I suppose I'm calling the new wave in terms of technology. So we're going to get a little bit more deeper into that rather than talking just at a big stage about at a strategic stage about projects and infrastructure. But before that, I know that when I was looking at the kind of amazing things that they built in the Victorian age, it's quite phenomenal really, because who would have thought that so many things could happen at that time? Right across, from the underground through to bridges. I mean, there's so much engineering going on. Do you think we're entering a bit of a golden age now with all of the infrastructure that's being built around us and all of the way technology is enabling things to kind of work differently?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always exciting being an engineer and working in the built environment, but I think it's super exciting now. I feel we're like at this turning in the world and sort of in time, because technology uptake and technology innovation is growing so fast, and we have huge remits to build things. We also have burning platforms, almost literally, because of the net zero challenge and really trying to do the right thing for citizens. I mean, it's like a perfect situation to transform the industry and the world, the built environment around us. We just need to get on with it and do it.
And look, when you talk about big projects and infrastructure, there's always an element of taking care of the environment within that. And I know that's something that's important to you. What do you think people should be considering when they're looking at infrastructure? And I know obviously you've got ecological studies that you have to do, but just generally, do you think there's a role for digital in trying to help us kind of meet those targets in terms of sustainability when we're doing big infrastructure projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a role for everything to improve where we are. If you think about the built environment, if you add buildings to transport, then the built environment contributes 80% of all carbon emissions in the world. That's a crazy number, right?
Yeah.
So we have a duty to make sure that the infrastructure we're building really improves. We do it in a better way. So digital ways and digital thinking, but also automation and doing things differently will dramatically improve it. So for example, we talk about modern methods of construction. When we think about how we build things in a traditional manner, it actually wastes up to 30% of materials, just completely wasted. That's 30% of steel and concrete and the carbon associated with them. Definitely.
Why are they wasted? Sorry.
Because of the ways that we build, because of the ways that you build on a construction site. Construction sites are big, very difficult organizational spaces where you are trying to do a lot of things to very tight timelines, but also very tight standards. It's actually like a bit of science and a bit of magic sometimes. And just the way that we've always built things isn't super efficient. There are quality issues that happen on site. There's rework that has to sometimes happen. There are dirty places. There are places where, it rains, there is snow, there's wind, all sorts of the elements really can get to you. So it's not like a factory. But if we start thinking of building in a way that's a bit more factory-like, like modern methods of construction and off-site manufacture, you dramatically improve the quality and reduce the waste.
Okay, so doing more of the work off-site in controlled environments is one step you definitely take.
Yeah. It's not for everything.
Yeah.
But for a lot of things.
Okay. And in terms of the next wave, which is obviously involving technology, let's talk about things like AI and predictive analytics and digital twins. Are they improving safety and delivery, do you think, in terms of transforming the projects themselves as well as the outputs?
Yes, I really believe that. And I've seen examples, because creating a simulation of something that you're going to build allows people to understand, first of all, how to build it, but also engage with the people who are going to run whatever the asset is and think about how they're going to maintain it. Because we have a duty to not just only build it in a good way, build the right thing, but also build something that is safe to look after, maintain, and we can keep as a legacy to sort of future generations. If we don't have a visualization, it's not as efficient. But also, it allows for better training. So by having these really good 3D visualizations, suddenly your training ability of the people not only building it, but also maintaining it improves. So you can reduce, statistics I've seen say you can reduce health and safety incidents by up to 20% just by doing that, by changing how you train people.
And in terms of, have you seen that taken on board and what projects can you talk about where you've seen that happen?
I've seen it quite a lot in Europe recently. There's a few energy providers who've invested quite a lot in 3D visualization specifically for health and safety. And the returns they're getting are phenomenal on that. Because obviously health and safety is important for many reasons. One of which is we obviously never want people to be harmed in the work that they do. But also, the reality is these things cost money. So looking after people has the added advantage of also reducing your cost.
And I also saw a documentary where they were using 3D and they brought all the trades, if you like, into the same room.
Exactly.
And then the trades could say, well, actually, I couldn't do that if that was there. Where suddenly you could see all of the different infrastructure elements that were coming together. So let's pretend it's piping going up this particular wall, and somebody said, well, no, there's actually cables underneath that wouldn't work. Are you seeing that happening now more and more?
A lot. Actually, it's a lot more prevalent because once you have good data and you build a good 3D model and a simulation, then you can have these, we call them rehearsals, right? So you can have how are we going to build it together? And also doing good things like early contractor involvement. So you have all the trades and all the different people involved looking at how they're going to build it, how they're going to maintain it, and how they're going to sort of look after it. Suddenly you can avoid the pitfalls that you would have just fallen into, especially because we're trying to build more complicated things all the time.
And just in terms of, I know that we have for major projects in Ireland and across Europe, a requirement to kind of get away from paper and have 3D models wherever possible and bring in the building information modelling. But really, we're quite far behind on that. It's a aspiration. So how would you speed that up?
I find BIM quite interesting. So
building information modeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just call it BIM. It's because it's actually in the UK it was mandated in 2016. That's how it's not a new thing.
It's not a new thing.
But it's a very important thing because it's not just about the visualization. The thing that people often miss is that in order to implement BIM, people generally follow an ISO standard of how they organize and define their data. It's actually a stealth way of cleansing and setting up your data in such a great way that you can then build a BIM model and then you can use it to build a simulation and then you can use it to create a digital twin. That your ability to do all of those things is much, much easier if you have implemented BIM and you followed the ISO standard. You should think of it like housekeeping for your project to make sure that things are in neat boxes, they all match, and it's just a very tidy way of using your data. And the data is super valuable. So why wouldn't you do that?
Yes. And I suppose that's the foundation, excuse the pun, for everything. And in terms of actual realisation of people building their BIMs, has it been very slow in its uptake? What's your experience of it?
Yes, it has. I think it's been slow, and I think for some organizations it's been painful. I think sometimes people get a bit hung up on the BIM project as opposed to thinking of it like data. I think sometimes people just worry so much about the visualization, they forget the whole sort of use case for BIM, which is about your data, about integrating the data, using the data to deliver your outcome. I think if you think of it in that way, it just makes it more accessible than just spending a lot of money on some technology that you may or may not use and you're not really sure about.
So where would you start? Where would you start if it was you tomorrow?
Where would I start?
To make it easier for people to get their head around it.
I think people just need to have a better understanding of the data that they have and what data they have, what decisions and insight that data can drive. I think once people think of, and what I mean is, if you are building an offshore sort of wind farm, or we'll use that as a random example, not talking about a particular one, but any offshore wind farm, and you're thinking, or wind turbines, and you're thinking about how you're going to operate them, and the level of output you want to get out of them. Really important to understand how all of that operation and how all of that system is going to work with in the future with what you currently have now. So how do you make sure that all your systems sort of tie in together, all your data points tie in together? How do your sensors work so that you have real-time information? If you pre-plan these things ahead of time, then all of a sudden it's much easier, much cheaper. So the way to in order to help you pre-plan it, if you start to think about your built environment in a 3D way rather than a 2D way, you suddenly think that actually, I do need sensors for this. Yes, it would be useful for me to understand like the flow in this direction or in that direction. And actually, when I am, billing, or when I am doing any of my sort of understanding sort of system capacity, having this data pre-designed is very useful. Suddenly my BIM model and the investment of emotional and sort of financial investment in BIM becomes really useful.
Okay, so thinking of the outputs. And I know that we talked before, we had the interview that the proven kind of industry technologies can really make a difference. Are there any kind of, I'm going to call them quiet innovations that you think deserve more attention, that can really contribute to infrastructure projects?
Yes, absolutely. And there are lots of quick wins. There are lots of easy, accessible technologies.
We love those.
Yes. So for example, we talk about, there's a huge amount of paper still in the industry. So being able to automate the quality control of paper, it's quite straightforward. There's loads of tools and loads of organizations that can help you set up tools to scan this data, verify the data, and do the job that takes loads and loads of people, loads of time to do things manually, automatically. Predictive analysis, which is based on understanding the condition of your asset. So understanding the wear and tear on, I don't know, railway tracks or roads or whatever. Being able to do some very simple statistical analysis that tells you when you need to maintain your assets so that you do them in the way that you can plan for rather than when you have to. Very accessible.
Bridges falling into the ocean, thank you very much.
No, none of us want that.
Look, I'm going to just have a quick pause here because we've got a very important person that we need to give them space to tell us a little bit more. So here's to our partners, Accenture. So don't go away. We'll be back in 2 moments to talk about this really interesting subject in about 2 seconds.
Through the power of cloud, data and AI, Accenture is helping the public sector by blending human ingenuity, technology and a delivery-focused culture to turn their ambitions into action. Be ready for any challenge by adopting a continuous reinvention mindset to deliver human-centric services that adapt and grow with your needs. Contact the team at Accenture to find out more.
Okay, we're back after our little break and I'm here with Huda As'ad from Accenture and we're talking all things infrastructure. So one of the things I know is a big challenge across everywhere, but particularly within the public sector, is capabilities and talents. And it's a tricky one. How do you procure and have long-term skills that you need within a project to deliver it successfully? So have you, I'm presuming you've seen this problem elsewhere.
Yes, I have. I mean, there is no quick silver bullet, easy win. There's nothing I can tell you that will magically make this.
Oh, that's terrible. I thought we solved this. We'd have one interview with Huda. We'd know exactly how to find all the skills we needed.
I mean, it's a challenge everywhere. It's a challenge in all countries. I mean, people talk about the brain drain all the time. The reality is that the uptake of engineering in schools and universities is reducing. And there is a thing we have to do to make it attractive again. We say, I mean, I've seen statistics that say the average age in the industry is 55, which means in 10 years' time, who's going to be building stuff? The intake of 19 to 24-year-olds in the industry is at 11% and dropping. Again, are we going to have anyone who's going to build all the stuff that we want over the next 10 years?
Yeah. And this is the physical build, is it?
That is the physical build.
Yeah.
And these things are important because we need to create an industry that feels inspiring, that is as inspiring and as attractive as I found it when I was growing up. And that requires an investment of time, of people's time. People need to be, understanding the importance of STEM, encouraging a much more diverse pool of people to go into our industry. And our industry has historically not been super diverse. And I think that's such a waste, because there's a whole huge pool of people that we're not accessing, of clever people who can really contribute, all these amazingly talented, skilled people who decide not to be in our industry. And we have to do something about it.
Have you seen any initiatives anywhere else where you feel it's made a difference?
Yes. So I've seen a few. For example, there were a lot of tunnels being built at one point in the UK. So one of the projects, I think they part funded, or maybe they fully funded, a tunneling school that was to encourage a much more diverse group of people to learn.
A tunneling
A tunneling
school? Who would have known?
I know, right?
Okay.
But actually being able to operate a TBM, that's a tunnel boring machine for you, which I think is a very super cool piece of kit.
I think it sounds very exciting.
It's very, very exciting. So being able to operate it and all the sort of ancillary equipment around it, super important skill that we need to have, especially if you're going to build loads of tunnels. And investing in a tunneling school and going to schools to attract young people into engineering, super important. And that really changed the dynamic and also the mix of people who are working in the industry.
Okay.
So I think there are things that local governments can do, schools can do, and employers can do.
I suppose even on a marketing side of things, of communicating, some of those fantastic infrastructure bills that are going on in the UK, whether it be the Olympics or whether it be the big tunnels that they're doing, they've done some really interesting documentaries on them that makes you attractive places to be. So, and also we had one of our winners of the Digital Inclusion Award this year is Longford County Council. And they worked in conjunction with Microsoft to educate, do projects and bring in technologies into the classroom through mini videos, and people work together to come up with innovations in their local area. And it really increased the number of schools offering computer science, because there was the demand coming through from the primary schools. So there are things that aren't rocket science, but can make a huge difference.
Definitely. And sometimes it's even just a conversation. So I am a construction ambassador in certain schools. I have been in the past. And I go and I speak to lots of different children about my career and a career in STEM and what it could look like for them. And actually, it's very interesting because uptake in STEM subjects goes up by 50% when they have an engineering-based careers day. And that's because sometimes I think people can't be what they can't see. Whereas if you offer an alternative, you say, actually, I'm an engineer too, because I think maybe I don't look like a typical engineer. That just makes people think that there are options that they didn't consider in the past.
Yeah, they couldn't see themselves in the role because there was nobody they saw in the role. And I suppose these things, although they're all brilliant, they don't seem to be moving fast enough. And it is a worry, isn't it? Do you feel that we could come to a stage where projects just stop because we don't have the skills?
I don't think we'll ever get to that stage.
Yeah.
I don't think we will. I just think it just makes it less efficient and slower. And it's just a shame not to do it better than we're doing it now.
I know that the projects like this, when you did the Olympics for London for 2012, it's very exciting, but it's also very stressful, isn't it? Because I'm presuming everybody is, because you can't let the ball drop.
Yes.
Was it long days, long hours?
Oh, yes, definitely. 12-hour days for years. And obviously, we didn't know it was going to come in on time and on budget and be successful. It was very, very challenging. And I was sort of quite junior when I started, a bit less junior because it was 6.5 years of working on it. So I think, it's not to be underestimated. Working in our industry is a challenge, but it's an amazing challenge. It has a lot more rewards than the sort of the challenges, and that includes, access to really cool kit. I think that's quite cool.
Yes.
But also being given quite a lot of responsibility at a sort of more junior part of your career, being able to see the built environment around you, making an impact, and really making a physical impact to the world around you. And I think that's something really special.
And what kind of roles, would you like? Let's call out and try and encourage young people to take up subjects. What subjects should they be looking at other than STEM? Is there more?
Yeah, so
apprenticeships, I'm guessing.
Apprenticeships for sure. Look, there are lots of routes to get to engineering and to get into construction, to get into built environment. Some people are more interested in design, and there are loads of opportunities for people to work in design. Others are more interested in the physics and fixing the problems, which I personally was. And actually, that you can do that through either professional. You can go to university, to college, university, and qualify. There are lots of different routes to do it. Apprenticeships are super ways to do it as well, because they allow you to learn while you work.
Yes.
So you're earning. And I think that's a very civilized way to do it, because you can just get on with things. It puts you quite ahead of a lot of other people.
And in terms of, I'm moving off that subject now because, I can hear the people knocking on the door saying they want to have this job. But in terms of the budget, it did highlight climate and energy resilience as top priorities. Do you think we're able to meet those kind of sustainability goals? I mean, what would you say you must do?
It's a tough one, because it's something that's really close to my heart. I think we have to, or do our very, very best to, because we have a duty of care to the future generations. It's not something that we should take lightly. They are really big challenges, because it took a long time for us to get to where we are today to cause this level of damage.
Yeah.
But I think if we are mindful in how we design things, how we procure things, how we sort of let out contracts and how we build things, then we can get pretty close.
So I suppose it's up to us, if we're procuring, to make sure that we build in a demand as possible for sustainability, right?
Yes, and actually, if you speak to younger people, sort of younger generations, this is really important to them. So we have this level of responsibility to make sure that citizens get what they ask for.
And anybody getting it right, do you think, in terms of, respecting the environment and sustainability as they build big infrastructure projects?
I think I have no
Other
comment.
than dictatorships, of course. Sorry?
I think I have no comment.
Okay. Look, let's look 5 years ahead. 3, I think, in technology and infrastructure, maybe 3 is okay. So how do you see kind of infrastructure converging with technology, and what kind of good government projects look like?
So with my magic, if I could sort of wave my magic wand to see what we're going to look like in 3 years' time, projects will be digitally enabled because data will be integrated. Clients and government will have a level of predictability and predictiveness, so they will be able to communicate what's happening to the project, and there will be a huge amount of trust from the public that these things are going to happen. And the outcomes that the projects are supposed to be delivering will be realized, because we've got our data right, we are communicating, and we're doing the right thing.
And I suppose another element to that, which sounds very exciting, Huda, is that if our citizens can see what we're building in 3D, let's say, or a virtual environment, so they can really see it, I'm guessing we'll get really interesting feedback from them, for perhaps things we don't think about, right? I know that happened in Fingal when they were looking at redeveloping. They did a whole virtual twin, and a lot of the feedback they got from the community around was not, "Oh, we don't like that," or "Stop that." It was more, "Can we put in more green space?" So have you seen that, where the feedback from citizens becomes really, really positive and useful?
Yes. We've seen the use of sort of, I guess they're kind of relationship building exercises, where you use visualizations of where you would place, for example, pylons, especially in areas of outstanding natural beauty and in sort of more rural areas where people are worried that it's going to obstruct their view. They obviously want more energy and more power, but not in my backyard. But actually, if they could visualize it through this 3D visualization and see how close what the view will look like from their houses, all of a sudden they're a bit more understanding and flexible, or they could even have a more constructive way of commenting, which, as you said, is, can you move this a little bit more to the right because of whatever reason? And it doesn't have a massive cost impact, so why wouldn't they?
Well, look, this has been amazing, and there's so much more we could talk about, but thank you so much for coming in twice to talk about this fantastic subject. So if you've missed part 1, please make sure you do listen to it. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm also going to thank my team here for behind Transform Gov. That's studio manager Peter Rice, video editor Neil Horner, Lee Brennan, who's our sound engineer and videographer. And thank you for listening.